Africa is concerned. The first one is William Masembe Nkata, who is a mental health worker. Can you say hello to our listeners?
Good evening.
Okay. The second one is Mr. Peter Riddell, who is for Initiative of Change, who works with Initiative of Change. And you're going to hear quite a lot about Initiative of Change, especially in terms of the way we want Africa to dialogue. My first question is going to come to Peter. It's to do with the. I want something about your personal experience in terms of dialogue. Dialogue as a key word. How do you get somebody to sit down and talk about something? Two parties, for example, that are total in disagreement. How do you begin when the people are on loggerheads, almost killing each other or something like that? How do you begin to say this is where we start from? Is there a formula?
There's no formula. There are no formulas in life, are there?
Yeah, there are no formulas. Yeah.
Well, I suppose my mind goes immediately to a man called Osman Jama Ali, former Deputy Prime Minister of Somalia.
Yeah. And
he came to a meeting, a weekly meeting that we held. This was 2005.
That's Initiative for Change, of Change.
Initiatives of change,
yeah.
Yes. Mm. And he said, I want to give the rest of my life to reconcile my people.
Yeah.
And this was in London.
Yeah.
And he gradually drew in people from the different communities
of Somalia.
Yeah. in London. And they had some meetings, and they came to some consensus about what had caused the collapse of the Somali state.
Yeah.
Why so many peace conferences had failed, and priorities for the future.
Yeah.
And they said our people have lost the art of talking with each other.
Yeah.
We must help them learn that art.
Okay.
And we had a course on dialogue facilitation that had been developed in America between black and white.
Okay.
And we said, well, perhaps this would be suitable. And so then you had leaders of different clans sitting in the same room.
Yeah.
They were all facing forwards. They were all wanting to learn something.
Okay.
But they were all listening very carefully to each other.
Yeah. And
actually hearing each other in a completely different environment. It was kind of humanizing relations between leaders. And
I guess it's the key thing is acceptance. One has to go down, one has to go up. William is, although a mental practitioner, has done international development and has been involved in a number of issues in Malawi and so on. And how do you see this in terms of people sitting down and really accepting that we need to talk? Because the biggest problem that we face in Africa today is the fact that people don't talk. People they want to be listened to, but they don't want to listen back. And that is where the biggest problem is in Africa. Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. I think I come from an angle of not necessarily as a mental health practitioner.
Okay.
That helps. It has helped me to understand a little bit about dealing with conflict. I also am informed by my personal initiatives, building communities. What I've discovered, and I'm still discovering, there has been a lot of changes in the African fabric. When you consider the cultural perspective, the cultural undergrounding of communities has gone a lot into changes, therefore meaning. You find that the social linkages are no longer there. Culturally, they were. question is, what has led to the destruction of those social linkages?
Yeah, that once existed.
Social linkages once existed, which were informed by the culture grounding, sitting down. It is common in the African cultures to sit down and tell a story.
Yeah.
And hence the common, it might not be common, but there is always a stool in the stories told by Africans. The meaning of that stool is to sit.
But the thing is, where it all went wrong in terms of sitting down and talking, we've known this as Africans from our cultures, weddings, gatherings, funerals. These are part and parcel of our daily lives in a way. We sit down, we have clans, and we've all been talking about this. Somebody told me 3 weeks ago, I said, I think what came in was money. Money came in, which we never had in our African cultures and so on. So when money came in, or when a white man came in, he brought in certain things which we never had. Now suddenly we are valuing those things more than the values of the things that we had in the past. And this is where I want to find out, Peter. When you look, you're working in Lebanon, for example, and you work in the Middle East, where you're looking at in Israel and those areas. Money was not an issue. The issues, even where religion is the same, like in Syria and Lebanon, the religion is the same, but they still can't talk. They have something which is a common ground, but they still can't talk. It's a common thing. Again, in Africa, the same, similar. The tribes are the same, but they still can't talk. How? The key thing is, most of us Africans we want to find out, is there a way we can make a breakthrough suddenly and say, hey, we need to start talking. Sudan have been trying to do that. Uganda has been trying. But still, there has to be that. How do you convince somebody to sit down and talk? Especially when there's been bad blood for centuries.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's often when one party acknowledges their own wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking there of a former Christian militia commander who
in Ireland.
This is Lebanon.
Lebanon, okay.
Who had been an executioner and car bomber. He'd been head of security of his militia.
Okay.
And then he began through initiatives of change to meet Muslims.
All right.
And he realized that he had been fighting an image of Muslim that wasn't actually true.
Yeah.
And that began to cause him to reflect.
Okay.
And then he came to the point of writing a letter of apology,
yeah.
A public letter, which was published in the newspapers.
Yeah.
And in which he apologized both to his victims and their relatives.
Yeah.
And I think that gave him moral authority and broke down. He wasn't justifying himself.
Okay.
And the newspaper the next day said several warlords have admitted mistakes, but he's the first one to have apologized.
Yeah.
So I think this
is something which is very rare.
Yes.
Yeah. It's very rare. Yeah.
But I think also there's a matter of timing around it.
Yeah.
I don't think you can force it.
No, you can't.
But there comes a moment when people are ready to open their minds to the possibility. But then if you're faced with someone who is still justifying what they did,
okay,
then it probably can't go much further at that time.
William, African issue is there? Should we start saying money as a major contributing factor, or because then when we look at it and say, okay, when somebody is a billionaire, he has, where does he need to talk to you? You get my point.
I do. But I think, yes, money is a factor.
Yeah.
But before money, there's politics.
Okay.
Politics comes with money.
Yeah.
When people are holding a position, they hold it so dear.
Yeah.
And they hold it for reasons.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when they hold those positions so dear and they protect them, it is over a period of time, it has become not about the community. Not about the peace. Forget about the peace as long as I've got the money. Forget about the lives which are distorted, livelihoods.
I've got the money.
I've got the money. Forget about the children, the women, who are always the victims of these struggles. Overwhelming politics overwhelms reasons of getting. That's where we can factor in money. But politics is behind. Can I say something?
Okay.
A little bit further.
Yeah.
There has been a distortion in the framework, management systems in Africa, where politics has become the base of everything.
Yeah.
Social linkages is secondary.
Yeah.
Culture. If we're to address and to do what the Peter's initiatives, which is a welcome to Africa, because we need to start from somewhere.
Yeah.
I am of the view, and I suppose some people can share this, we need to turn that triangle. Culture to be on the base, social linkages, and politics last. Why? Because people in Africa got a lot of understanding of their culture. They don't invest in it.
Yeah.
There's so many social linkages in trade, health, in hunting. All those activities promote intertribal. I remember very well, if I can quote my experience from the history of Uganda. We had kingdoms.
Yeah.
One kingdom would share values with another kingdom. Fundamental avenues of peace, maintaining and sustaining peace. One kingdom was turned up.
Yeah.
Because of dominancy, overwhelming, understanding that it is all about.
How about education? Education as a major factor now in terms of maybe improving, in a sense that when people are educated and they learn what's happening on the other side, there's a tendency to say, oh well, we go ahead with this, because the education skills are helping them in doing so. Because this is happening in areas of Pakistan, where somebody was telling me that there is a huge gap that is existing between certain areas where near Afghanistan, where all these Taliban are. Those areas, their school, practically most of the schools were burnt down. Now, when you go to the other side of Afghanistan and where Pakistan, which is quite good, the areas where the education is very low, there are no schools and so on, still has a lot of insurgencies within the Taliban. And but the areas where the education, where the schools are built and so on, there is a very, very different, you see people are so positive. Nigeria has a similar thing, because I've been discussing this with a lot of Nigerian people, and one of the things that is observed is the northern part of Nigeria, where the Boko Harams and all, schools were burned down. There is very little in terms of trade and so on. But areas where Nigerians are highly educated in the south and so on, there's a lot of dialogue. Muslims live peacefully with Christians. They don't have a problem with that. Now, if that is an issue, Peter, for example, with the areas where you've worked, if I can mention Northern Ireland, Lebanon, Israel, Eritrea, Southern Sudan. When you look at it in all those areas where you've been, do you see education as a major factor?
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Lebanon is a country with 18 different religious confessional groups.
Six. Yeah.
And they all have their own schools.
Yeah. With different ideologies.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then that's reflected in the structure of the country, where you have the president is a Maronite Christian, and the prime minister is a Sunni Muslim, and the speaker of parliament is and then that's reflected all the way down through
into the parliament,
through the structure. So you've institutionalized division there, and then it becomes very difficult to get out of. But then I'm also thinking this same man, Assad Shaftri, this former militia commander. So he's formed a group called Fighters for Peace.
All right, yeah.
Of former militia commanders from all the different militias.
Okay.
And when I last spoke to him, maybe a year ago, they'd spoken to 15,000 young people in schools and universities.
All right, yeah.
To try and persuade them not to follow the same path of violence that he and his colleagues had, and now there's a play going around the schools.
Okay.
So I think, in a way, you can't wait until those structures dissolve. You have there are already there are things you can do. But could I just go back to the previous subject?
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think the influence of colonialism, British and European colonialism, cannot be underestimated.
Okay.
The depth of trauma, which I'm learning about, is absolutely profound. And when Britain gave a huge area of Somali territory to Ethiopia. And then there's been a disaffected community of Somalis in Ethiopia, and there's been conflict and tension, and then another huge area of Somali territory to Kenya, and tension there, and then Djibouti took that area of
Somalia as well.
Somalia. So and then what I learned from Osman Jama Ali, who was that at independence, in the new parliament, there were 3 people who had a first degree, and most of them were illiterate. Now, I understand that they wanted to get rid of the British as quickly as possible, but how even in the 1960s, how could a country with that level of education in Parliament survive in the modern? And there was a honeymoon period.
Of course.
And then there was a military coup and a military dictatorship, and so. But just I'm of this white skin. and I'm a grandson of of my grandfather was a baker, but Britain has benefited hugely, and the economy that we have has benefited from. You have cities like Bristol or Liverpool built on the slave trade, and London, and I think this is again where education comes in, but it's not so much for Africans, but it's for British and for Europeans to, again, are we going to acknowledge
what happened in the past?
What happened in the past, and the suffering
that took place,
and still takes place. Still,
because of the what was done in the past,
and the trauma that goes down generations. I think, and so I think it's barely possible for Europeans to be able to imagine the upheaval. You spoke about the kingdoms in Uganda, and then the divide and rule tactics,
but I suppose somebody can say, well, these things took place in the past. We've read about them in history. Generation over the years, it's an issue that we could say maybe we can put behind our backs and then move way forward. But as you are saying, the issue is unless something has happened, as you say, forgiveness, and then the only way we can move forward is when forgiveness has taken place. I mean, Mandela said that when he left prison. When you read his book, the prison years, he explains that, and he says, look, I had anger when I went in. I was a young man, I had annoyed, but as soon as I was about to leave prison, I realized that if I don't put my anger behind me, for the rest of my life, I'll be hurting. So no matter what happened, I left it behind me and moved on. And he thought that his fellow South Africans would have the same. Listening to you talk about that and the gain and slave trade, I have the feeling that the anger is there. But I think, on the other hand, we as Africans need to put that anger behind us and see how we can progress. What do you think, William? Do you have a different opinion?
Well, I have a view, but thank you, David, for...
We are in the right area because the man deals with it.
It does not stop on one generation. The impact, the ripples from one generation
to the next,
definitely they're there. I remember in the mid-90s when there was a big population from Somaliland to come to UK. The first 10 years were very troublesome for them. There was a lot of overrepresentation of crime. Something which was named as crime. But I think what we were seeing was anger, was trauma. Trying to adjust and to understand why they're in this new environment, which is good, but also what they've left behind. I had an opportunity to work with some people who were actually traumatized. I don't want to go deep into that, but it is a fact, and it's good to hear that until someone takes leadership to address these issues, education would be good, but it is not enough. And the question is, what education? I would say, I'll make an argument that one of the fundamental problems for Africa has been the elite.
Those who are highly educated.
Yes.
They are a problem.
I can make that argument.
They are a problem.
I can protect it. Not all of them, but when it comes to leadership, the elite failed. Communities which brought them up. Remember, in Africa, you belong to the village. You belong to that community. That community brings you up, takes you to school, looks after you. What have the elite done? The moment they leave those villages, those communities, they don't go back. They do, they take positions, leadership, and they forget to aim.
Could I say something there? I would say that, again, it comes back to education. And then again, it comes back to our community. If you haven't been brought up with a silver spoon in your mouth and you're being told, for example, that this is how we do things. This is what you should do. You've gone to school, you've done this, this is what you should do. If that thing hasn't been installed in your brain with your parents and so on and so forth, then the chances that the moment you finish your education, you want a white-collar job, you want to be, say, for example, the way the white people are, because I've seen so many people, once they're up, and that's it. Once they get the money, once they are, they don't even want to go back to Africa. They want to be here. Now, the thing is, it's how you install that into a child, so that that child grows up knowing that no matter what happens, this is what I've got to do. Yeah, so that's the kind of thing that I have, because even here I've seen it when I went to Houses of Parliament one time, and I made students from Harrow University, one of these great schools here. It has had, I think, 6 or 7 prime ministers. They bring them to the Houses of Parliament, where they don't get kids from Brixton or other areas, but these ones come to the Houses of Parliament, and they actually sit where the people who are debating issues on governments are, because they said, look, these are the future politicians of tomorrow, who come in from Harrow, who come in from these top universities and so on. So the British government is trying to address that. So we could also have kids from Brixton or other areas who to come into Parliament and gain that experience as well. It has always been Harrow and so on and other big
Can I
schools.
say something?
So I'm looking at it from that angle. Can we address it from the angle that is how you're brought up, it's how you bring it up?
Social capital starts at home. There should not be time in our lives that we should lose social capital. Political capital is important. But to address the issue of education, why education is paramount, but also on the positive side, but also on the negative side, the kind of education which was introduced did not, in a way, meet
what I just said.
Yes.
Peter.
Why? Just 1 second. There's nothing wrong with the white-collar job, but they are so detached.
Yeah.
When you address the issue to African,
in the African context, yeah.
For example, the soldier or the fighter you spoke about, who stood up and say, we need to address the problem we have in Lebanon. That is leadership. Possibly he was not an elite. Might have been informed to take that leadership from the cultural
point of view. Yeah, okay.
Peter, so this is also a question, which education? Thank you, sorry.
Peter, what do you think in terms of, because the British have had that over the years, the top universities, if you don't have a degree from Cambridge or from Oxford University, or if you never went to Eton, any of these major schools, the chances that of being an MP, or being a director of a company, or being the Archbishop of Canterbury, the current Archbishop, has addressed that issue. And I think the former Prime Minister, Tony Blair, addressed that. Where the jobs are for the boys. That structure is being addressed at the moment. Do you think it would be worthwhile? Africa should face something similar? Because we have something similar. We imported it from here. Yeah. Is it?
No, well, it's clear that there are kind of known routes
to the top.
To the top,
yeah.
Starting from. I live in Oxford, so we have the elite primary schools and public schools there, and it's difficult to counter that for those who don't have their means. But then there are a lot of people in Parliament who didn't come from that background as well. There's so where there's privilege, there does need to be some balancing mechanisms to even things out, and they will be more or less effective. But
But you think it should be the top people who could actually be faced with the fact that although you have a silver spoon in your mouth, you grew up with it, but you've got to look at those who never had that opportunity,
yes,
and give them their chances, you know, because we are failing in Africa. We're failing because of that, regardless of what happened in the past and so on. That's where the dialogue thing comes in. If the top person hasn't gone through a system of being, not brainwashed as such, but being informed properly of what actually the ordinary man on the street knows, that the bread costs £1, but the top man doesn't even know how much the bread costs. So it's how do we lower that? And we can only lower that by dialogue. By dialogue, in a sense, that somebody has to start explaining to them, then it comes down. So do you think we need to, that balance, how do we create that? That's the key question.
Well, I do think that it really comes down to a choice in people's hearts, doesn't it? Because someone with huge ability and with huge education who chooses to put their life at the service of people can work for the benefit of a much wider group than someone who comes from a less privileged background. So I would really want to put the emphasis on the sense of moral responsibility. There's that phrase that from those to whom much is given, much is expected.
From those whom much is given, much is expected.
Yes.
In other words, somebody who's a multimillionaire, there's a lot of expectation from a billionaire.
And you get a Bill Gates, who has done extraordinary amount to eradicate malaria, hasn't he? So, and there are such people, and a lot of people who are doing things quietly, so they don't come to attention. And then you get the people who misuse their wealth or abuse their wealth or privilege. But so I much prefer to focus on this inner struggle. Yes.
Individualism is the key.
No, not individualism, but it's the spiritual struggle inside people. You know, in Islam there's a wonderful phrase called the jihadul nafs, which is the struggle with self.
Okay.
And it's the struggle against the destructive and negative impulses in us all, and it's the struggle to promote the positive and the creative impulses, and that's just going on in every single person, minute by minute, isn't it?
But the thing is it's also the surroundings that you have.
Yes.
If your surroundings, the chances are, what chances have you got if however much struggle you're going to do, when your surroundings are very, very different from what you are trying to struggle and put forward.
Yes.
Because that in itself is a major factor in Africa. You know, and William can testify to that in areas where he's been in Malawi and other areas of Uganda, where I mean, you can get, like what they say, you can get a man out of Africa, but can you get Africa out of the man? You know, like a case, can you get Africa out of the man? You do your best, he's an African. There is always going to be difficult. Nigerians have witnessed that. You get him out, put him there, and then, but at the end of the day, he remains an African, behavior-wise, in all the things that he's trying to do. So, but the thing is can he help Africa? That's what I'm looking at. Because if we can get these dialogues down, and they can go down generations, then the chances are there's a lot of things we will achieve. If we get that, the problem is getting them down to those levels where we need for them to be effective and active, you know?
I suppose contextualizing the issue in the African setting, and bringing on board what you just said.
Yeah, yeah.
The, taking the Africa out of me.
Yeah, yeah.
And put what?
And put what in Africa?
This is me.
Yeah,
I'm an
yeah.
African.
Yeah.
I've got culture norms and values, which are not different from a young man of my age or more than my age in Bristol, who is never been told by his foreparents to kill, to starve, create disharmony. There's nothing in my culture which tells me so. So there's nothing. You don't need to take the Africa out of me and put. Understand me, the Africa, and work with me. So dialogue is not a new thing in Africa.
No, it's not.
It is good to have, but it is not there, and it is very clear because of the distortions. Hence the reason why we see conflicts. Where dialogue has been used, we have evidence of good outcomes. Some of them are not sustainable, unfortunately. But do we ask the questions why? Once upon a time, when I was a student of international development, we had some debates of, for example, why is it that it is difficult for Africans to integrate new knowledge into their knowledge base? And it is easier for a Chinese, Japanese,
an Indian
to integrate knowledge from the West into their knowledge base and see where they are. So what is wrong with the elite from Africa?
The cultural backgrounds? The cultures? Because those...
Why are you attacking the culture? There's nothing wrong with the culture.
There's nothing wrong with it, but what I'm saying, the attachments that we have probably prevents us from getting that knowledge.
I think that there's a tendency to privatize the knowledge.
To privatize?
Yes. We have privatized the knowledge instead of socializing that knowledge back.
And spread.
And spread. Mr. Stephen Mulindwa, bachelor's degree, master's degree, PhD on the wall. It is his. It does not belong to the village.
Okay.
This is mine. I worked so hard to get these names behind me.
So I can't teach anybody that.
I don't have space for that.
Yeah.
I need to create as much wealth to prove that I have those. Let's go back to dialogue.
Yeah.
Dialogue needs a table.
Yeah.
But in the African context, I think the elite have pulled away this table from the masses. The table of decision making, the table of dialogue, has been moved away from women, from young people, from older people. They don't take part in decision making issues which affect them. When you look around, who are those people who are pulling away the table? For those people, the majority, the indigenous, are the elite. You the elite. We the elite.
But can I say that it has always been there? Peter and I were just talking a few minutes ago. When my father speaks to me, regardless of what I'm doing, if he calls now, I find myself standing because I've been raised. I don't answer back to my dad. I don't, even though the man is 97 years old now, he can't beat me, he can't do anything, but I have that much respect. Then I meet the elders in Africa who are older than mine, who are much, older than me. When they are talking, there's that bit of silence I have to do, and it's a kind of respect, but respect in such a way that even though they're wrong, I probably won't put up a fight. So my idea now here is that when we're bringing in dialogue, we need to listen to the age as well. we need to say, hey, we've been listening to this age for a long time, but can you listen to what the others are saying? I've got a tape of a young lady in her 20s who was talking about dialogue in Malawi, and I hope we'll probably have enough time to play it and people can listen to it and view it. She talks about being listened to, asking to be listened to, exactly as you're trying to say. But the thing is, you are saying the politicians have done that, but they are doing something which has been in existence for years because our elders have been doing that.
I don't believe so.
Mm-hmm.
This, for your knowledge, Peter, I'm sure you might have come across it.
Mm-hmm.
I come from Buganda. We have something called Chitawuluzi.
Yes.
Chitawuluzi was a place where members of the community once a week would go and assemble and talk about the issues. That's what I'm talking about.
William, I just think the tape is probably ready, and our viewers could listen to
harm them. We often resort to sort of retreating and to sort of seeing that thing that threatens us as something that we should hate.
Okay.
And then we react.
I think
and then the fear just takes over our mind. And we fail to think from a rational perspective. We fail to view the world from a perspective of logic, from a perspective of reason, from a perspective of let's come together in dialogue. You see, I believe that each and every one of us who has been through the experience that we experienced in the 2 weeks in January has gone through that phase where they were, fearful, and we began to hate and we began to see the other person as the opponent and the enemy. Now today I've been asked to come here and talk about the young people, and I believe, Mr. MC, that I need more time. I need more time to express that young people are some of the most vulnerable people, and these are the people who have been mostly affected by what has happened. And the fact of the matter is that we have come here sometimes sort of filtered and sort of censored. We've been told, oh, talk about this, don't talk about that. When you mention the sensitive part, say those are allegations. But I want to talk firstly about rape. I am a young woman, and I believe that we have to speak against such things because these things will not bring peace in the long run. Whether these women are coming forward and they're talking about it as allegations, these are young women. Most of the people who've been affected are young women, and as a young person, I can only stand to say that we have to talk about it in an objective fashion, and we cannot have a dialogue such as this one and leave and not have talked about this. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to talk about is that we as young people are the hardest hit by everything that is happening. If you look at the people who've been hardest hit by the violence, the people are getting abducted, beaten up, the people are getting arrested. We've had reports of young people as young as 6 years old, as young as 11 years old, being taken and beaten up. We have to talk about these things because they are affecting young people. Now, please do bear with me here. I do not believe in the politics of generationalism. I believe in intergenerational dialogue. I believe that the young people and the old people should come together and talk in full consensus, but let us tell the truth. Because the truth is the only thing that will set us free. It might make us uncomfortable. It might make us a bit hesitant, but it is the only thing that can bring healing, and it is the only thing that can set us free as a nation. Moving on to the next thing that I want to talk about is the issue of diversity. In this nation, we struggle with diversity. We struggle with people who are different. It's like how I will look at myself and see that I'm beautiful, so everyone who doesn't look like me is ugly. It's like how I can look at myself and I'm a relatively tall young woman, so every young woman who's not my height is short. It is how I can look at myself and say, I'm intelligent, so everyone who does not reason the way I do is stupid. But that's not true. Just because someone does not look like you doesn't mean that you are beautiful and they're ugly. It means they're different. Just because someone does not share the same sentiments and opinion as you doesn't mean that you are better off intellectually. It just means that you are different. We need to come to a state where we can agree to disagree, where we can agree to agree, and where we can agree to compromise, and know that the other person, irregardless of how different they are still important, and their opinion matters. The next thing that I want to talk about is dialogue, the importance of dialogue. We come to those meetings and we say, oh, this dialogue, we're talking. But in actual fact, we need to understand dialogue in its more holistic fashion. Dialogue is when we come together in an attitude of we want to compromise and we want to hear the other party. It is an attitude of where we come together and we want to say, listen, we want this to be genuine. We want results at the end of the day. I've often told people that every war that has ever been fought, you talk about the world wars, every genocide, when we have had gross malpractices in any nation, all of that ended when there was a dialogue. But now I want to bring some new perspectives to this. What if we made dialogue our culture? What if we made it our everyday living? What if we decided to have dialogue before we've got 4 million people dead? What if we decided to have dialogue before we've got a lot of women raped? What if we decided to talk about it before we've got people who are dead? You see, I believe the dialogue works. But the only problem that we have is that we often have it when it's too late. We have dialogue when people are already dead. We have dialogue when women are already raped. We have dialogue when things are already bad. Why don't we have it before all of this? You see, even prior to all this violence, to all this, this tension, we could already see that things were leading us there. Why didn't we have the conversations then? Why have them now after all those people are dead, after all those women have been raped, after all this vandalization, after all this brutality? We have to set our objectives straight. The final thing that I'm going to say before I leave, I think it's very, very exceptional that we've got so many great and awesome men of God. You see, Ezekiel Gucci once said that people are people. We must learn to realize that there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that makes us different. We're people. We're just people. We are just people. Be able to look at the next person and see a person. Let us not look at another person and see a white Zimbabwean. Let us see a Zimbabwean. Let us not look at another person and see MDC or ZANU-PF. Let us see a Zimbabwean. Let us not look at another person and see, oh, this church and that church. Let us see a Zimbabwean. We are all people. And the moment that we come to this realization, it means that we are ready and for peace, and we are ready to talk about things in objective fashion that are leading us into a future of prosperity. But as long as we are coming together and we are not telling each other the truth, then we have a problem.
I do hope we've listened and seen what she has to say in terms of dialogue, in terms of talking, because ideally what she has in mind is one of the things that we've been talking about here. And that is something that involves sitting together, coming up with the ideas of how we are going to help each other in each other way, because it has not been the African way in so many ways. But I have the feeling that we can reach that level that has not been reached yet, because that's what she was actually trying to explain. And Peter, Northern Ireland and United Kingdom, the IRA, the entire thing, the Good Friday Agreement, well, you've lived through that. You've seen what it means now to sit down. And of course, you are seeing British exit and why they're worried it might come back. I don't want to go into politics, but you have that which has settled Northern Ireland. How did it all come about? Is it just a question of sitting down and talking, or is it a question of understanding each other? All the things that we've talked about combined together. As somebody who has worked there, do we need the combination of all of them? Education, maybe money involved, maybe elite people sitting down with the lower ones. Do we need all of that? Did they need to do all that in Northern Ireland in order to have the dialogue that has enabled Northern Ireland to have the peace that it has at the moment?
There are so many factors, but I think if there's one I would pick out, it was the Queen's speech in Dublin in 2011.
Okay.
When she wore green, which was the Irish colour.
Okay.
And she spoke in Gaelic, a few words, which was a language which the English had tried to suppress.
Yeah.
And she went to the Martyrs' Memorial and she bowed her head.
Yeah.
And she said just a few simple words in a very short speech. She said, "I'm sure that with historical hindsight, there are things we would have wished had not happened, or had happened differently. And an Irish nationalist friend in Belfast said that she had drawn a line under 800 years of British oppression of the Irish. And so again, that's acknowledgement, but then it was built on a lot of ordinary people in Northern Ireland, Protestant and Catholic, studying the Bible together, for example, and Prince Charles made regretful remarks illustrating his regret. Tony Blair apologised for the famine. With a million people died in Ireland. 1 million people left Ireland in the mid-19th century. So I think, and then the extraordinary miracle of Ian Paisley and Martin McGuinness becoming the closest of friends. I mean, that if that isn't a miracle, so there's a mystical intervention factor, which
there wasn't any pressure from both sides that, listen, you've got to shake hands. For example, the Americans put a lot of pressure on the Irish, in a sense that, come on, violence, because most of the money used to come from there to support.
There's there probably has to be pressure, but there also has to be the internal inside, the outside and inside, the movement in the hearts of people.
Okay. All right.
And
so
I think we really we actually spend a lot of time, if I may say so, analysing.
Yeah.
And some people stir up other people to become angry at things that they can do nothing about.
Yeah.
And then that becomes impotent power, and it actually takes them away from the one thing which the Almighty might give them.
Yeah.
To be the thing that they could do to make lives better around them.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of, at the moment, politicians and very clever people with words stirring up anger about things that people can't do anything about. I heard a tabloid newspaper editor say that he was paid to be angry for Britain, which means provoking anger.
Do a lot of stories that provoke anger. Yeah.
And then actually it's a very dangerous.
Yeah,
you create a wave indeed, which may take someone to power, or it may sell newspapers, but in terms of the damage that it does to the social fabric and
the community,
we're meant to be. This is one of the things that Initiatives of Change teaches, is to take a time of silence each morning and to ask the Almighty, what do you want me to do today? Who needs my care today? Or what service can I give to them?
Provide today,
In fact, this morning my wife my father-in-law is dying, and my wife has had to sell the house and incorporating a lot of furniture into the house, and now we've got too much. And there was a cabinet up in the loft that she thought would be just right, and I didn't think it was. I had a dim memory of what it was, and so I didn't get it down. And then this morning, she mentioned this cabinet again, and I said two things which were negative, and she just collapsed. She just collapsed. And I had my quiet time, and I realised that if I got ready quickly, I could find just enough time to get this cabinet down, and even get it up on the wall. And I left my wife very happily arranging this cabinet and putting some of the glasses that were sitting on the table in that cabinet. And I was just so grateful to have been given the one thing that I could do and I'd been really insensitive and previously so it really is about what each of us can do, and what other people do is really between them and their maker. And what we do is between us and our maker, of course, and our makers. And then because dialogue had collapsed between my wife and I,
it could have collapsed.
And then by me taking some simple steps, you
arrested the situation. I agree with you, William. That simple scenario is an African way. Probably an African man would say, "I'll do it when I want."
But there must be many Africans who would do the same as me.
Yeah, I know. I do.
You're generalising.
Yeah, okay.
About the whole continent.
No, well, I'm generalising, but I'm also looking at it from the context of coming from a male-dominated society, where our voices are never, like I was just saying about my dad, voices are never, answered back and so on. Maybe this is where we need to do, in a sense that, in a sense that we need to have those voices nowadays where you're listening to your, and I've always listened to my 12-year-old, 13-year-old girl now. I used not to, but I said, look, he's a kid. But now when she says something, I listen, because sometimes they sense in what she says. Although most of the time I say, come on, she's 12 years, 13 years old, and okay, and I let it go. But sometimes there are certain truths which come out of that. So I do agree. So we have to, but on a huger scale, like the entire continent, as William was trying to explain, some of the cultural things that have come up with us in Africa, I think somewhere along the way we need to start saying, hey, although culture I can't answer back when my father is speaking, there can be a way around it and say, let me wait for him to finish. And I say, but this is what I meant, so that I don't embarrass him so much, and I don't. So in the end, it brings in the kind of cohesion that you are saying, that we sort of brings us together in a way. But we have to find a way how that dialogue will come in. And that is what I was explaining to William. I said, how do we do it? Because the British have tried it in Northern Ireland. It is coming. It comes in with the forgiveness. It comes in with the apologies and so on.
My take on that, again, I'll say, we've walked away too much so far from the African culture. Okay. If you look deep and study that, what you're talking about is there.
Yeah, it's been there.
It is there.
Yeah.
It was there. It has to be there, and we need to look for it.
Bring it back.
We have a saying, that a game or a dance, a form of dance or a game, left for
did what?
Go amazina golekera abato. To do with dancing. That even the young ones can drum for the elders to dance.
Even the one that you've raised.
Yes. The meaning behind that is that bring them in, let them do the drumming,
and I'll dance.
Change positions. Let the kid dance, and let the elder. So that's my argument, is that all the good things we're talking about are hidden in the cultures. They are there until we look for them and harness them. Just something to say about dialogue, conflict. Where there is no dialogue, where there is conflict, there is impediment in development. This is one of the problems we struggle in Africa. Money has been thrown in. Aid in kind, aid in practical forms. But why is it that nothing holds water for a long time. Is it because there's too much knowledge, culture transfer from where the money comes from?
Yeah.
Without enough understanding of gaps where that knowledge can fit with the local knowledge.
Right.
If that is a problem, where do we find that cultural knowledge? Not in the elite. And I think there is a fundamental issue there. Elite are detached from the cultural grounding of Africa is ways and means of also having a friendly fight. Help which has come far in kind has failed to hold ground because the elite tend to own. As I said in my argument, that the elite, the leaders, have distanced
themselves from
the table of opinion making. Shared opinion making has been pulled away from those poor women with 3 kids and about to pay a big pan of water walking 4 miles. In this day and age, when millions and billions are used for planes, women are still fetching water 5 miles away.
There isn't. There are certain things in life. I'm a firm believer that if you can touch something, then go ahead and touch it. My tribe, the Baganda, is saying that where a short person can reach is where that short person can touch. If he's short, he can't reach the top. He won't touch there. If he's tall, he will touch there. So in other words, there are certain things which are practical that we can achieve in terms of we can reach there. This is what we can do. We can talk about it, and maybe by talking about it, that knowledge will be extended to the others. And sooner or later, with the social media at the moment, you can see we've just been playing a tape which came in through the system. So the thing is, knowledge will empower so many people, even the women, whether someone has gone to school or not, there will be empowerment. And I think somewhere along the way, that empowerment will sooner or later be something that can realize the dreams of so many other people. I mean, we never knew the Arab Spring would bring changes to the Arab world. We never know where the African Spring is going to come from. So we are coming towards the end of the program, and I think we have very few minutes left. And I would like both of you to say something in a couple of words, really, of how you think this can be achieved in terms of, okay, if we are to dialogue, should we go to schools? Should we go to churches? Should we do, which institutions can be used? Because nowadays even churches are no longer sitting down to make, there used to be areas of dialogue where people would go when they have when they have problems and so on. But they're not going to churches. Now, what else? What what steps can be taken to help in the dialogue of people understand each other and live peacefully among each other? Peter?
Well, starting with oneself.
Yeah.
Is there anyone I'm not speaking to?
Okay.
Or who is not speaking to me?
Yeah.
Is there, what conversations are not happening? Really, it starts. It starts right at the bit, because we can't blame others. However high up for not if there are people in our own circle that we're not speaking to, and you just feel in this world at the moment there's broken relationships wherever you look. And if there's one broken relationship that you can repair, that's one broken relationship less.
Okay.
in the
So
world.
in other words, there's got to be a man in the mirror, like what Michael Jackson said. You look at the man in the mirror and then say the decision.
Or the woman.
Yeah. I like that. William?
I think in everything we strive to do, there is a need for us to detach from ourselves, appreciate that the presence of the Almighty God, the Creator, needs to be at the center of our initiatives, and to try hard to create a self-healing community, self-healing societies, where safety nets is not a duty. To create safety nets, systems and services is not only the duty of the government, it to be our duty, and it's the small thing you do with love and care for the other.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you very, very much for viewing us, listening to us, and we coming here, and of course we are not experts in the fields that of dialogues and so on, but at least we've given an insight into what can be done, and we all look forward to ensuring that not just in Africa but the entire world, there has to be some kind of dialogue. We people, human beings, have got to understand each other in terms of what they do, so that we can live peacefully among each other and love each other, as William has just said. We just want to say thank you once again for viewing us, and I hope we'll be together again next week for next week's program of Africa Speaks. May God bless you.